Up next, ready to share his vision on the future of military healthcare and how we can use our shared commitment to those we serve to create an MHS capable of meeting the challenges of tomorrow is Dr. Stephen Ferrara. Dr. Ferrara is currently serving as the Acting Assistant Secretary of Defense for Health Affairs. Dr. Ferrara is an experienced clinician, combat veteran, educator, and healthcare leader. In his current role, he's the Principal Advisor to the Secretary of Defense and the Undersecretary of Defense for Personnel and Readiness for all Department of Defense health and force health protection policies, programs, and activities. Sir, welcome.
Thanks very much, Pat. Well, good morning, everybody, and it is absolutely great to be here. And all of a sudden, after that first session, I feel grateful to be a lowly interventional radiologist, because I think taking clots out of people's brains when they're having a stroke, or embolizing a uterus in a woman who's bleeding after delivering a baby seems much less complicated than what they were just referring to. First of all, I want to thank the DHA for hosting this critical symposium and for bringing together such a broad range of professionals, military medicine, federal partners, researchers, innovators, and industry leaders. It's an honor to be here with everybody. We're focused on a mission that cuts across so many sectors, delivering smarter, integrated, data-driven healthcare for service members and their families. This annual gathering is a testament to the importance of information technology and information management in achieving that goal. It's more than a technical conversation, it's an operational imperative. The nature of warfare is changing, and so is the nature of care. From polytrauma and blast injuries to long-term behavioral health challenges and environmental exposure risks. The people we serve need a healthcare system that's resilient, proactive, and agile enough to adapt in real time so that we can support the warfighter, sustain our clinical and operational skills, and strengthen the entire healthcare chain that underpins readiness. We're making great progress, and we have to because the stakes are high, but we also need to move quickly. This is an era of rapid technological change, evolving threats, and increasing complexity, both in military operations and in healthcare delivery. What's exciting to me is that the Defense Health Information Technology infrastructure is at the forefront of addressing these challenges. It's not merely about adopting new technologies, but how we strategically integrate them into our workflows. We heard a lot about that this morning already. To enhance our operational effectiveness, which is the key to what we do, to improve patient outcomes, and ultimately to bolster the readiness of our fighting force. Amidst all of these factors, amidst all of these pressures, and all of these requirements, our purpose remains constant. It's to deliver world-class, operationally relevant, and future-ready healthcare, not just in hospitals and clinics, but on ships, in operational medical units across combat zones, and throughout the vastly expanding digital space. Let's begin with one of the most foundational and still one of the most difficult challenges that we face: interoperability. The private sector has struggled with this, academia has struggled with this, and our government partners have struggled with this. And yet, the military health system is one of the largest and most complex healthcare systems in the world, and we're the only healthcare system that goes to war. With more than 9.5 million beneficiaries and a global footprint, interoperability, integration, and modernization are not luxuries, they're requirements. Through our recent full deployment of MHS Genesis to fix facilities across the entire MHS, we're closer to achieving something that's unprecedented: a single, secure electronic health record across all military treatment facilities, one that spans the operational, deployed, and garrison environments. Critically, this achievement extends to our operational assets. With the USNS Mercy and soon the Comfort, now fully operational with MHS Genesis, this capability represents a significant leap forward in our ability to deliver seamless care, even in the most challenging and remote environments. The deployment on the Mercy demonstrates the system's ability to function effectively in a maritime environment, provides real-time data access and decision support for medical teams responding to humanitarian missions and operational needs. It ensures the highest standards of care are maintained regardless of location. This is the backbone of a connected system that allows service members' medical history to follow them from basic training to the battlefield, and a warrior's medical record to follow them from the battlefield through the evacuation chain and ultimately home. And soon, I hope, to the VA in one smooth, uninterrupted flow. We still have work to do. For example, when that 26-year-old soldier with mild TBI seeks care within the MHS, that care team must have immediate and seamless access to her complete clinical history, her battlefield treatment notes, her neuroimaging, and her mental health encounters. It's not just a matter of convenience, it's the difference between proactive, effective care and fragmented follow-up. We know that integrated, longitudinal care is integral to great outcomes. It's also how we ensure that we're supporting the warfighter beyond the battlefield, providing continuity of care that spans service and system boundaries. I believe we are at a historic inflection point in technology. AI, we just heard about it in the last session. AI is already a transformative force and is showing no signs of letting up. It's disrupting how we envision work, how we shape our workforce, how we educate our society, how we discover, and how we problem solve. It's an incredible time to be alive and to be part of this renaissance. And healthcare is at the vanguard of the AI transition. As we modernize the health record, we're also modernizing the patient experience. We're investing, as you just heard, in AI-powered decision support tools that help identify early signs of PTSD, TBI, and suicide risk. Remote monitoring systems for chronic disease and post-op care, and expanded virtual health capabilities that allow surgical consultations from deployed hospital units and behavioral health visits from remote duty stations. These capabilities allow us to deliver care in what's being called the fourth space of healthcare, beyond hospitals, clinics, and home. In this new digital space, information moves faster than geography, connecting care teams and patients across domains, countries, and conflict zones. The data that's collected and analyzed through Genesis is informing real-time clinical decision-making aboard the Mercy, enabling faster and more effective treatment protocols for patients that are in need. This capability is vital for providing rapid and responsive medical care during humanitarian assistance missions and emergency deployments. Let me share a practical example that demonstrates the speed and efficiency of working in the digital space. The latest iteration from that mighty 711th from Wright Pat, they're probably out here now, of BATDoc, the Battlefield Advanced Technology and Data Orchestration Kit, which has proven pivotal in ongoing efforts to streamline battlefield IT. BATDoc gives medical providers the ability to record essential data, including injury types and treatment details, by digitally logging them on to mobile devices. With the ability to operate without internet connectivity, BATDoc uses network resources to securely transmit encrypted data, enhancing information flow to medical facilities and bolstering situational awareness for logistics planning. The most recent deployment saw significant improvements in network latency and bandwidth management, allowing for near real-time data transfer between disparate units. It also has an integrated AI-powered threat detection system. We just heard a lot about security. It successfully identified and mitigated a simulated cyber attack. This demonstrates BATDoc's evolving capabilities in defending against modern digital warfare. The 711th is going to use lessons learned from this to directly inform future BATDoc configurations, furthering its contribution to tactical advantage and information dominance. Our readiness depends on this kind of innovation and integration. So it's crucial that we speed up our digital progress to help our warfighters. Even when they're in the farthest corners of the globe, Integration helps us maintain clinical currency, train the next generation of military medical professionals, and support real-time care in dynamic environments. We also need to leverage the vast and growing healthcare data that's available to us, not just to document what's already happened, but to anticipate what's next. We're now moving from health data collection to data-informed readiness, a shift that allows us to sustain our clinical skills and sharpen our decision-making in real time. Genesis is a critical enabler of this shift. The data it generates provides unprecedented insights into patient populations, treatment outcomes, and operational readiness. It allows us to continuously improve our healthcare delivery strategies. Let me offer another example. In the past 2 years, we've begun integrating wearable sensor data into broader assessments of warfighter performance and injury risk. This includes real-time tracking of sleep, heart rate variability, and exertion. Combined with clinical records, this helps flag early indicators of musculoskeletal injury or psychological stress, the two most common causes of soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, and Guardians being in a non-deployable status. We're also deploying machine learning models to help identify service members at higher risk of opioid-related harm, not based solely on prescription data, but also on comorbidities, prior adverse events, and their social determinants of health, all embedded in their health records. And we're applying advanced analytics to the Joint Trauma System Registry. This houses over 1 million trauma care records, improving the triage protocols and refining our training pipelines for forward surgical teams, ensuring that we sustain high performance skills and strengthen our operational medical response across the force. The integrated data environment fueled by Genesis allows us to identify and proactively address potential risks. It enhances the overall health and well-being of our service members. The point here isn't simply about having data, it's about building systems that translate data into insight and action so that we can deliver better outcomes at the point of care and across the care continuum. A third area where health IT is central in our response is to environmental exposures and toxic injuries, an issue that affects thousands of current and former service members. Whether it's airborne hazards from burn pits, forever chemical contamination, or noise-induced hearing loss, we're building longitudinal exposure tracking systems that integrate operational deployment data and clinical and laboratory records. For example, EILER is a critical tool that allows clinicians to access personalized exposure histories at the time of care, while simultaneously supporting population-level understanding on long-term outcomes like cancer or neurodegenerative disease. This is how we support the warfighter, not just during deployment, but across their entire lifetime, and how we strengthen our healthcare chain with evidence-based policy, clinical guidance, and surveillance systems that endure. Health IT is the infrastructure that makes this type of dual-purpose surveillance possible. It meets both clinical and research needs, and it doesn't overburden providers or delay care. All of this brings me to a final and a critical point. None of this work can succeed in silos. Our public-private partnerships are essential, not just for developing new tools, but for testing, scaling, and governing them responsibly. We're deeply engaged with HHS and other federal partners to create interoperable platforms and to help ensure continuity of care across the service member's entire lifetime. Internationally, our collaboration with NATO, allied medical forces, and humanitarian organizations supports interoperability during coalition operations as well as disaster response. For example, during multinational exercises and humanitarian missions in the Indo-Pacific and Eastern Europe, our clinicians use standardized telemedicine kits, portable diagnostics, and secure communications to collaborate across borders in real time. They delivered agile, coordinated medical support. Domestically, we rely on civilian trauma partnerships, like the Military Civilian Partnership for Trauma Readiness, to certify that our providers remain trained in high acuity, high volume trauma care. These partnerships directly improve our operational response capability to mass casualty incidents and combat situations. Whether it's a forward surgical team in Ukraine training alongside NATO medics, or a data exchange pilot with the Indian Health Service, partnership is how we extend capability, how we ensure continuity, and how we deliver on our promise. Simply put, this is how we sustain the skills of our workforce, how we modernize our systems responsibly, and build an ecosystem that supports warfighters and civilian patients alike. We couldn't do any of this without our industry partners, so thank you for being here and thank you for your support of the military health system. Your innovation and your risk-taking, it imagines and it enables the technology that was once relegated to the domain of science fiction. So as we look ahead, the military health system's mission is clear and it's urgent. We need to deliver a truly integrated, digitally enabled, and globally partnered system of readiness and healthcare. It's a system where a medic in CENTCOM can consult a trauma specialist at Walter Reed in seconds. It's a system where a service member can access their entire healthcare history. And it's a system where a deployed provider can use real-time decision support in an austere environment to save lives. This is a future in which data is no longer a barrier, but a bridge. And MHS Genesis, as exemplified by its successful maritime deployment, is a critical plank in that bridge to the future. That's the promise of our work. That's the path we are walking together to support the warfighter, sustain our skills, and strengthen the healthcare chain. I want to thank you for your continued partnership, your leadership, and your commitment to health, readiness, and innovation. I appreciate you all being here this week. I look forward to the discussions and the collaboration, and I look forward to getting to meet many of you and to a great question and answer session. So thank you all very much. I'm going to bring, is Pat here? Great. All right. I'm bringing Pat up here so he can help me with some of these technical questions because, like I said, I'm just a lowly interventional radiologist.
Thanks, sir.
Come on over, Pat.
All right, so we have about 10 minutes for questions. I have about 2 queued up for you if you want to get started, sirs. First one, what background software is being used to connect personnel to providers or provider to provider in deployed settings? Is it truly hardware agnostic, so we'll work with cell phones, laptops, desktops, VTC devices, et cetera?
There's a lot of background
Can't
echo,
understand what you're saying
Senior
at all.
Price,
Can
but
you
I think it's,
slow down
yeah, go ahead. Can you do it again? But
Yes, sir.
more slowly.
What background software is being used to connect personnel to providers or provider to provider in deployed settings? Is it truly hardware agnostic, so will it work with cell phones, laptops, et cetera?
So the soft, go ahead.
So what DHA provides right now is the TMIP-J suite of software. We do not field the hardware with it. The services do that. So basically, we hand over a disk. Now, that's changing. JOMIS, PM, JOMIS, and OMIS-A are coming out. It's a different approach, and it's probably best for when they get on stage for them to answer that because it's new, it's in test right now, hot off the press. But that's the current answer. And then the military departments have done some of their own things as well. They've fielded, I know the Army right now is piloting some things in Poland with a system called Halo and another one called Phoenix MD. And so I don't know how much virtual video capability there is. A lot of it is back to Mr. Mount's comments earlier, right? It's if you want to use technology that requires wide area networking, somebody's got to provide the wide area network. And the answer today is the military departments do that. And this is not a medical problem. Right? So when I use my example of PM for GCSS Army, that was maintenance and supply and ammo and food and fuel and water. Medical's just another one. They all have the same problem.
All right, sir.
Yes, hi. Great presentation, first 2 presentations. I have a question just about global capacity management, visibility over the entire network of hospitals and MTFs. you think about instances like a next global pandemic or mass combat casualty troops coming back, can you talk about the vision for gaining that one system level view of all capacity, patient flow across the entire network, if you will?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll talk a little bit about sort of the big picture of how we look at, things like global pandemic and integration, and then if Pat wants to get into some of the kind of the IT systems, that'll help facilitate that. But that is a big area of interest for us. It's a big area of interest for this administration as well. As you know, President Trump was in the seat when COVID-19 began. So that's been a very high focus for the National Security Agency of our biosurveillance and biodefense programs. I think one thing I'm really proud and excited about our work with, one of the departments at Uniformed Services University in looking at national, NDMS and the National Defense, Management Strategy. And also that's a big thing with our federal partners. So how we do all those things, we really have to be in lockstep. And that's when, you heard me talk about interoperability. I feel like I worked on Capitol Hill in 2012, 2013 on the Health Subcommittee, and that was shortly after the HITECH Act. And, I always regret that the HITECH Act didn't, allow better interoperability between, electronic health records and so forth and systems. And I think we're catching up now, a little over a decade later, but we're having to do a lot of rework with a lot of smart people like Mr. Hines and Mr. Flanders and stuff to help bring that together on the back end as we do on the front end. But in order to manage those type of things, to bridge the operational environment with the MTFs, and then also to bridge civilian, VA, and really create, an all-of-government kind of strategy. We're working those things, but I think IT and data and information systems are going to be a backbone to that, of course. And so how we can get after that, we're doing a lot of those things with logistics, with transportation, with protocols, with how we deploy our labor and how we know who's got what, kind of, the baseball game plan. But in terms of the IT systems, I'll let Pat speak to a little bit about that, about where we might be and how we can work both within the military and then with our federal partners.
Yes, sir. So again, I'd urge you to think of this not as a medical problem. Yes, there's a medical component, but pretend you're the chairman of the Joint Chiefs and there's this big theater thing going on and it requires Moscow. Well, at the same time you're trying to arrange for patient evac back, you're dealing with resupply of ammo. You're dealing with resupply of all those things, and it's the same planes, trains, and automobiles, right? And reception of forces, reception of that gear, distribution of that gear. So it's really an integrated warfighting issue. Now, yes, we have a capability. MedCop is what we use today. It's run again by PEO DHMS, and it gives you that. It's got a classified component. But if you're an actual operator, the holy grail for you is being able to see the entire operational space and to be able to time phase things together, because that's the real logistics challenge.
Yeah, and I would, I think I really appreciate meetings like this and other joint and intergovernmental and industry gatherings, because again, whether it's LISCO or whether it's a global biohazard event, as many of you know, and this isn't a classified statement, this is publicly available, our capacity in the homeland becomes rapidly overtaken. So we will rely, it's doctrinal that we'll rely on whether the VA and civilian partners. So how we integrate and how we move, and it's exactly the extension of what Mr. Flanders was just saying, not only about intra-military, but then interdepartmental, interagency. And so again, these data information systems, not just even related to medical, but if we are pulling in civilian aircraft, because that's a major area of how we're going to transport patients. We get them to Travis, assuming we can get them to the homeland, we get them to Travis, or we get them to other hubs. Then how do we distribute them across the country. And that's a lot of logistics, what he's talking about. But now it's not even within our own system, it's elsewhere. So it'd be great when we can start to talk to each other a lot more seamlessly.
Awesome, thanks. Sir?
Hi, good morning. Lee Payne with Deloitte. Thank you both for your presentations this morning. Dr. Ferrara, you talked about the data with the MHS Genesis, which is kind of the holy grail we've talked about, having that data available for us to ask questions, but we've never been able to sort of achieve that. So kind of for both of you, how are you approaching getting that data available and accessible for sort of real-time access for us to be able to ask those questions and bring that rich data set to life?
Yeah, what I'll say, and then I'll turn it again over to the SME, from my seat in leadership and sort of the vision is that I share your vision that we need to be able to harness that data, because I think that's really how we're going, to be able to improve outcomes. As a clinician, I think about, gee, if I knew everything, if I could know all the epidemiological data, if I could know all the trends about all our patients, and, I talked about the JTS with 1 million records, and if we could somehow sort through that, to me, again, not being a SME, but to me, that's where the promise of machine learning and AI seems to really be able to be a potential game changer. So, my direction from where I sit is to really ask our SMEs to say, hey, is there a way, can we get after this? I know in the private sector, whether it's the Googles of the world that have big healthcare arms now, they are trying to hoover up that data from, Ascension or other big healthcare systems where there's troves of data, because they understand that's the way you're going to find those, those connections. And, big data in medicine is going to become really powerful. So, Pat, what are your thoughts on how we can get to that next point?
So Genesis is against Dr. Weber. You'll get an opportunity to ask her questions. It's really, she's best suited to answer that. But I'll tell you this on the security front, because, I got a new dentist a few weeks ago, and I went in, and the first thing I had to do was sign, they gave me 5 pages of fine print, and, sign here. You had no choice. And it basically said, we're going to sell your data, we're going to share it with everybody. You just sign it all away. And we can't do that, right? And so there's a blend there of what has to happen. And because of that, it takes a little longer sometimes. There's goodness to be said with piloting things with de-identified data if you truly don't know if it's going to work, but it's also a trap to just go pilot a capability with de-identified data when you already know ahead of time it's going to work, right? It's just, it becomes more marketing, right? So I think doing it the right way, sure, where there are the right way with accredited tools up front, I think is better than proving something works in a pilot environment that isn't accredited and then trying to, after the fact, put the security in. It's not a good business practice, if you ask me. But more poignantly, the DHMS data, I think Dr. Weber, where that will end up.
Yeah, I'll add to that though, because I'm gonna lean on them a little hard, because I know, I several years ago in the build-up to the Cures Act, I would go down to the Hill a lot. I was in the private sector then, and talk about the opportunity for us to leverage big data, even with things like oncology, because, for example, again, as an interventional radiologist, I do a lot of cancer care, and so nowadays, I can't do a biopsy without sending it for NGS. That's like 100%. So we have genetic data on every specimen we ever get. And the power of that is in numbers and it's in volume. So the fact that data is siloed, if you go to MD Anderson in Houston, they have a trove of data. And then you can be at Sloan Kettering in New York and they have a trove of data and VARS. But, and you could look at things and say, for personalized medicine, this patient will fail the first-line therapy for this type of bronchogenic carcinoma, so they would benefit from the second-line therapy. Why would you do the first-line therapy? It's costly. It might have side effects that are hard on the patient. Their disease may progress during that time. So the ability to get to the right answer quicker, because it's fundamentally your genetic code is just it's just a big bunch of base pairs, 4 bases. parrot all over the place. So you can figure those things out, but you need the numbers to help. It's a statistical model. So I would contend, and what I contended then, and I still do, because HIPAA is very important, but as many of you know, HIPAA has a public health, exception. If a person has a communicable disease, you're not only allowed, you are required to share that information. And so I believe that under the public health exception, or under, HIPAA was passed in the 90s, and the world is different now. And I think the opportunity to say we do have encryption techniques, we do have de-identification techniques that the financial system uses every day. And if you ask patients, are you more worried about the security of your financial data or your health data? Most patients will say their financial data. And so again, not to be flippant at all with genetic information or health data, but I think there's a path. And because the other reason I think it's a security issue is we spend 18% of our GDP on healthcare, $4.5 trillion. It's the biggest industry in the entire country, which therefore makes it the biggest industry in the world. And so we simply cannot afford to be wasteful in our healthcare dollars, not only for moral and ethical reasons, but for economic reasons and national security reasons, because healthcare is crowding out the ability to do other things, including national defense. So being able to get after big data, I think, is a really important mandate for us. And I think we are getting to the point with the computing power and the genetic information to be able to do that. And so again, I leave it to people smarter than me to figure out how to make it safe and secure, but I think that technology exists, and I think we have to use it.
And sir, just to pile on, it would be really cool because right now we treat all of the data the same. It would be really good if we could get in there and get policy changed where we could say, hey, no, not this. This is separate. We're going to treat this differently. It's not. We don't have to treat it with the same security as others, and that would open a lot of doors.
Well, and again, the other thing is, when HIPAA was passed, if somebody knew about your pre-existing healthcare conditions, it could preclude you from getting healthcare insurance. That's not the situation anymore. So again, that was a very, important guardrail to put into HIPAA because it could lock people out of healthcare insurance, which is not the situation anymore. So again, to not have to be stuck in antiquated policies that have not kept up with, technology and changes in law and other forms of policy, I think is really, it's not only a missed opportunity, it's an imperative that we modernize.
Thank you both so much for your inspiring words and your candid conversation.